Just as the embodied passes through childhood, youth, old age in this body, so does it pass into another body. There the wise one is not grieved. So just as the embodied passes through childhood, youth, old age in this body, so does it pass into another body. There the wise one is not grieved. So going back to the situation where Arjuna has collapsed on the battlefield, this is the situation. He is completely distraught. Think of the worst experience that you could go through. How distraught would you be? You would literally collapse. You wouldn't be able to do anything. This is Arjuna's condition. His condition is what we experience periodically throughout our lives. So it's so appropriate to what it is that we're doing in our life. Arjuna, thanks to Arjuna's despondent condition, we get this philosophy. So Krishna is saying to Arjuna, why are you grieving? You're grieving for those who should not be grieved for, first of all. You're grieving for the wrong people. Why are you grieving for the unrighteous people? They're doing wrong. They have usurped the kingdom for 13 years. They've usurped the kingdom, actually longer than 13 years. Usurped the kingdom, and unrighteousness was ruling for many, many years. Now you have a righteous war to fight. Get up and fight. This is what the whole Bhagavad Gita is about. Get up and do what you're meant to do. Don't sit back. Don't not do anything. Do what you are designed to do. Arjuna, you're a warrior. Get up and fight. Why are you grieving? The wise understand that this body is what is changing. But the embodied, the true self, continues. Or you could say the mind and intellect, the subtle body within us, continues from one birth to another. Now here he's suggesting the theory of reincarnation. It is just a theory. It can't be proved. But there is so much evidence to say that this must be what happens. I mean, I'm sure you have all experienced meeting somebody for the first time, yet you feel as if you know them already. You know, the person who you end up being with is probably the person you have been with many lifetimes before. So here he is saying the wise does not grieve over death because he understands that death is actually a promotion from this life into another. See, what is life? When we understand that life is a continuation, it is just an opportunity for us to exhaust the desires that we have within us. Each one of us has so many desires, and our life is meant for us to exhaust these desires, not accumulate more and more and more. Because when we understand what a desire actually is, we will not want to accumulate them. We will want to eliminate them. A desire is the barrier that stands between you and your true self. And your true self is peace, bliss, harmony, contentment, all these beautiful qualities. That is your true self. So a desire is the barrier that stands between you and you knowing who you really are. And we have so many desires that each desire is a barrier that stands between you and your peace. Stress is nothing but unfulfilled desires. The mental agitations that we feel, that stress is nothing but mental agitations that we feel due to our desires being unfulfilled. So we have a desire, for example, to attend this class and hopefully gain something from attending this class. Now, suppose that desire is not being fulfilled. Suppose the speaker is speaking utter rubbish and you just don't want to listen. Your desire is not being fulfilled. Your mind becomes agitated and you switch off from watching this, from listening to this. So a desire unfulfilled causes your mind to be agitated. That agitation is nothing but unfulfilled desire. So when your mind is agitated in the future, whenever you feel mentally disturbed, understand that there is a desire in you that is not being fulfilled. And get to that desire, whatever that desire is. Analyze, what is it in me that is not being fulfilled today? If anybody has any questions, please unmute yourself, raise your hand and ask at any time, okay? Because this one is really, we must understand it, because each one of us is feeling stress throughout the day at different periods, at different levels of stress. Sometimes it's much more, sometimes it's much less. But any form of mental agitation is a desire that's being unfulfilled. I noticed that my husband this morning, he was working on his computer, and all of a sudden he went like this. You know, it was just, oh my God. And you could see the grief. You could see that he was disturbed because the work that he was doing yesterday was not saved for whatever reason. So naturally, that desire for saved work, he spent a lot of time working on a particular project and it was not saved on his computer for whatever reason. So that leads to distress. And what we normally do, what we naturally do, is we blame the computer, we blame other people, we blame the environment, we blame the situation. Instead of taking responsibility for ourselves, we point the finger and blame. Now, remember, when you point the finger, 3 fingers are pointing back at you. So remember that. Point the finger, 3 fingers are pointing back at you, meaning that you have to take responsibility for your own actions, for your own stress, for your own happiness. 3 fingers pointing back means that you must take responsibility for yourself. You cannot blame the world. Nothing in the world can cause you stress. Nothing in the world can cause you grief. We do a very good job of causing that ourselves. We are responsible for all the grief and all the suffering that we go through. So the reason why we are grieved is because we do not have the ability to manage our own mind. And this is what this philosophy is all about. Developing and strengthening that buddhi, that intellect, to manage our mind. I'm going a little off what we're discussing at the moment, but that's okay. I feel as if it's important. This whole philosophy is about strengthening our intellect to manage our mind, because the mind causes all our problems. It's our mind that's extrovert, that is constantly looking outside of ourselves for happiness. It's the intellect that pulls that mind in and says, no, happiness is within you. It is the intellect that supervises the mind that causes havoc with our personality. So the mind is all our desires, all our likes and dislikes, all our preferences, our impulses. When we're being impulsive, it's our mind. The intellect says, hang on, hang on, just wait a minute. You don't have to act impulsively, just hold on. Because when we're impulsive in our actions, there is always regret for what we have done. So the intellect will pause, will get you to stop and pause and think clearly. Mind will just react. It'll judge others. It's very judgmental. Highly judgmental is our mind. What a person is wearing, or how a person looks. Oh, I like this, I don't like that. This is the mind. It's like a child, just so impulsive, full of desires, full of likes and dislikes, full of emotions, and very often negative emotions. Jealousy, hatred, envy, anger. All these belong to the mind. Intellect is completely the opposite. Intellect will develop pure emotions. Intellect is not emotions, but it will guide the mind to develop pure emotions like kindness, forgiveness, compassion, empathy, all these beautiful emotions. This is the intellect guides you towards all of pure living, good living. Remember last week, I think I spoke about the banks of the river. Intellect is the banks of the river. It guides and directs the mind, the flow of water. Mind is the flow of water. Intellect guides and directs that flow towards the ocean. Without the strong banks of an intellect, the mind will cause havoc and destroy everything in its path. Not only does it destroy the river, you are the river. Not only does it destroy you, it destroys everything else in its path. When the mind is distraught, distressed, it can be highly destructive. And the only reason why it's distraught and distressed is because the desires are unfulfilled. Arjuna is in a situation where his desires are unfulfilled. He has to do something that he does not want to do. As a consequence, he's become immobilized. He can't do a thing. He can't even lift a finger. He can't do a thing. This is what happens to us. We become immobilized. We can't do anything. When we're in a distraught and distressed condition, can't do anything. What we need to understand is that everything in life passes. Everything in life has a temporary nature. Life is temporary. It's impermanent. But we have this permanent substratum. That is what we have to identify with. But understand that life, everything in life, the situation that we're going through right now is impermanent. In half an hour, it will be finished. It will be over. Then there will be another situation. Maybe it's lunch. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's work. Maybe it's going for a walk. It's throughout our lives, we are going through situation after situation after situation, some good, some bad. But know that they are impermanent. Everything is impermanent. Everything is changing in life. And just as we go through these changes in this body, we must know that at the end of our life, it doesn't end. It continues. Until we exhaust all our desires through self-development, through this philosophy, we will get to a point where we have no desires. We will reach a desireless state. Can't jump, can't shortcut. Don't worry, we won't be shortcutting. We'll get there eventually. Be patient. Step by step by step. Don't be result orientated. We'll get there eventually. Until we reach that state, we will have desires. And those desires don't disappear when this body dies. They continue onward to another embodiment. And he says, there the wise one is not grieved. How can you be grieved at death? In fact, it is a beautiful experience. Believe me, when you study this philosophy, you will not be afraid of death. There will be no fear because it is just another experience. Just as we go through experience, life is just a flow of experiences. One experience after another after another. At the end of our life, we just go through another experience from this body into another. In fact, we don't go into another straight away. We go into a dream state, a dreamlike state. This body perishes, as we all know. But our mind and intellect go into a dreamlike state. So it's like we're having a good dream. Depending on our personality, depending on our karma, we will dream either good dreams or bad dreams. But we go through a dream state or a deep sleep state. And then we are reborn later, after a period of time. We have to look for the right embodiment. That's why they say that the children choose their parents. Before you're even born, you're choosing your parents. You choose the right environment in which to be born. The right environment for your personality, Laura, your boy, he's chosen the perfect environment for his little body to be born. He is in the perfect place. Each one of us are in the perfect place for our own evolution. We must remember that every experience that we're going through is best suited for our own evolution. This experience right now is best suited for our own evolution. We're gaining knowledge about how to deal with stress, about what happens at death. There is nothing to be feared. We just move on from this embodiment to another. So are there any questions on this verse 13? Verse 13, just as the embodied passes through childhood, youth, old age in this body, so does it pass into another body. There the wise one is not grieved. If there are no questions, we will move on to verse 14. I'll just share that with you. This, again, is a beautiful verse. Chapter 2, verse 14. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, the Blessed Lord said, Krishna is speaking, The sense contacts, Alkantaya, which cause heat and cold, pleasure and pain, they come and go. They are impermanent. Endure them, O Bharata. So the sense contacts. Krishna refers to Arjuna as Alkantaya and Bharata to draw his attention to his ancestry. He comes from a long line of great kshatriyas, warriors. Come on, Arjuna, you're a warrior. Wake up. The sense contacts which cause heat and cold, pleasure and pain, they come and go. Endure them, O Arjuna. Endure the pairs of opposites that make up this world, heat and cold. He's using two here. Pairs of opposites, which symbolize the experiences at the physical body and the internal experiences at the mind. There are so many different experiences that we go through physically. Heat and cold is just one of them. Pleasure and pain at the mental level is just one of them. Profit and loss, joy and sorrow, honor and dishonor. So many different pairs of opposites we go through in life. Right now, up here, I don't know what you're experiencing where you are, but right up here, it's a windy, windy day. Very high winds. We get gusts. We're getting gusts today of up to 80 kilometers an hour, which is pretty high. Tomorrow it will be barely a breath of wind. Pairs of opposites. Titiksha is a Sanskrit word that means to endure unpleasantness with pleasure. To endure unpleasantness with pleasure. Practice titiksha. Patience, forbearance, tolerance. You know, when we go through things that we don't like, understand that you don't like them. There is nothing in the world. The world doesn't present us with likes and dislikes. Those we have within us. The world presents us with situations, conditions. We interpret these situations based on our likes and dislikes. So it's our interpretation of the wind that makes me feel, ooh, scary. Not that it is. We just had a gust. It's our interpretation of the food that we eat that makes us like or dislike it. It's our interpretation of the experiences that we go through, the situations that we're in. You know, a person may be walking down the road. It's just a person walking down the road. You're walking in the opposite direction, and you might see that person very closely, very soon. You happen to dislike that person. It's just a person walking down the road. But because of your dislike, you interpret it differently. You feel different. It is just that person has become someone you dislike. Other people like that person very much. You dislike that person. Does that make sense? So we spin our interpretation on our experiences. We're not objective enough. We don't have a strong enough intellect. Our mind takes over. It says, oh, I don't like that person, or I don't like that situation. I don't like that food. I don't like so many things. All these dislikes that we have cause stress and strain, tension in our lives. So what he says here, anything that you dislike, okay, you can't deal with it straight away. Endure it, oh Arjuna. Endure these pairs of opposites. birth and death, war and peace, honor and dishonor. They go on. Life is impermanent. Endure them. There's a beautiful poem called Even This Shall Pass Away. I won't go into it, but just that thought that even this shall pass away is a beautiful thought. Now, many people think it's an awful thought, but it's actually a beautiful thought. Nothing lasts forever. Even this shall pass away. We should have, in fact, the poem is about a king who carved even this shall pass away on a ring. So every time he looked at that ring, he would be reminded that everything in life is impermanent. Everything has a temporary nature. Why are we getting so caught up? Understand this is a temporary experience. Why are we getting so wound up with our preferences? You know, we get so excited when there's things that we like in life, and so dejected when we don't like something. So our life is like this: up when we like, down when we don't like, up when we like, down, like a roller coaster, up and down, up and down. Because we jump for joy when we have things we like, and we sink with sorrow when there are things we don't like. There are just experiences. It's just situations. It's just conditions. We need to be more objective and stand back and look at the situation as it is, not as we would like it to be. We would like it to be something different, perhaps, than what it is right now. But it is what it is. This is what the intellect does. The intellect helps you to see life as it is. In fact, that is the role of the intellect, to see life as it is. The mind will want it to be something else, and that will cause us stress. So whenever we're in a situation that we don't like, remember this word, this beautiful Sanskrit word, titiksha. Means endurance, patience, forbearance, tolerance. To endure difficulty with pleasure. Endure the challenges with pleasure. It's a difficult one, not easy. But the more we practice, the better we become, the more stable we become. The sense contacts which cause heat and cold, pleasure and pain, they come and go, they are impermanent. Just remember that everything is impermanent. Endure this impermanent experience of life. Even good things. Good things. Understand. Be objective enough to understand that even this shall pass away. The best of things in life, you want to hold on to them. You want to involve yourself completely in the good things in life. Hang on 2 secs. What are we doing here? I'm still learning this, by the way. Sabrina, you have a question you want to ask?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry if the question seems like I haven't understood anything, but I have a kind of, I often wonder whether, like, the enduring of everything with patience and, you know, putting up with difficulty cheerfully, I wonder, like there are situations where a person loses a child, or a husband unexpectedly leaves, or there are many situations that occur in our life. I'm trying to understand how, like, at what point are we kind of, you know, trauma does exist. People get traumatized. So at what point are we discounting the human vulnerability of what we can go through in life, and it's easy to say, you know, oh, everything is endured with, you know, it's like you'd have to be a rock.
No.
Yeah, sorry. So
no, Sabrina, thank you
lines.
very much for your question, because I'm sure everybody else is thinking exactly the same thing. How is it possible to endure such tragedy in our life with pleasure? I mean, that's just ridiculous, isn't it? That's what you're saying. It's ridiculous. Where is the humanity there? Right? This is what you're asking. So it's not that we become a stone or a statue or anything like that. We still feel we feel the tragedy. We feel the sorrow, the heartbreak. You feel it, but you don't lose yourself completely. I'll give you an example of my aunt. My aunt lost her daughter in a tragic car accident. This is winding the clock back many years. And it was very tragic for me. It was pre-Vedanta, so I was traumatized at the time. And today, if it happened, I would feel that trauma. There is no question. That loss, you feel it, but you don't allow yourself to lose yourself completely in that. You're able to pick yourself up and keep moving forward. You understand. It's just an understanding. You still feel that pain. Otherwise, you wouldn't be human. You still have a mind. You still have emotions. But they are not self-centered emotions. They're unselfish. So you understand that life is, for the person who has passed, just using this as an example, my cousin was killed in a car accident, a tragic car accident. This is many years ago. And it affected my aunt, her mother, so badly that she became so immobilized for 10 years. For 10 years, she could not move out of the house. For 10 years. Now, I'm not saying it's wrong. This is just how she handled it. And you might think, well, that's perfectly okay. If I lost my daughter, I would be in the same condition. But what he is saying here is understand the nature of life. We have desires in us, each person. Now, why does a person die? Using my cousin as an example, why was it that, now this young lady, she was only 26 years of age when she passed, and she was engaged to be married. She visited us before. She was actually, I was living in a place called Mawullumba. I lived there for many, many years, a place of many possums over on the east coast of Australia. And she visited us. She visited her family in Tamworth and drove home to Brisbane. She stayed with us the night, and actually, no, apologize. She didn't stay the night. We wanted her to stay the night with us, but she was determined to get back home and set up the house for her fiance and everything like that. So she traveled in the afternoon and she was tragically killed. Now, the question we need to ask ourselves is why? Why was she killed? There is a young woman engaged to be married. It's like Diana. Remember Princess Diana? A young woman in the prime of her life. Why was she killed so tragically? And we have so many other people that we know, so many other examples we can think of where people died tragically. Just the other day, there was this unusual situation where I don't know the full story, so forgive me if I'm slightly off, but there were two businessmen who were quite corrupt, and they were in court on fraud charges. And to cut a long story short, is they got off these charges. And a few days later, one of these men was out on his yacht and he had his family with him and other friends, and they were celebrating. You know, it's such a great thing that they got off this fraud charge, which would have cost them millions of dollars. And out of the blue, it wasn't windy, it wasn't bad weather. Out of the blue, I'm sorry, I can't think of what happened, but something tragic happened with the weather, and it caused the boat to capsize, and almost everybody on that boat was killed, including himself and his daughter. Now, the other man who was on fraud charges, the following day, did anybody hear about this? The following day, the following day he was killed in a tragic car accident. Now, how? Why? Karma, you could say. I'm not saying that there is a divinity that shapes our ends, either good or bad. There is a divinity that shapes our ends. These men, I'm not going to go into this because we might get into real trouble here, but understand that we have desires that need to be fulfilled, and we have this embodiment. This is the verse that we're on. We have this embodiment that is perfect for the fulfillment of our desires. Now, what people foolishly do is they just accumulate more and more desires. They want more and more things in their life. They become more and more agitated as a result. Now, if this body is no longer conducive for us to fulfill our desires, the mind says, okay, time to move on. The mind doesn't literally say time to move on, but this is what happens. The body is no longer conducive. It could happen at any stage of your life. If you are discontent with your life, it could happen at any stage. The body is no longer conducive for you to fulfill your desires, so you move from this body into another. So a wise person, what he's saying here, a wise person understands this and is able to inject this philosophy into their lives and say, okay, this is why this person has passed on. Their body was no longer conducive for them to fulfill their desires for whatever reason. They could have felt immense guilt for what they had done, incredible guilt. And here they are out there celebrating. Meanwhile, so many people are suffering as a result of their fraud. So many people have lost millions of dollars as a result of their actions. They could be suffering from extreme guilt. Therefore, divinity comes along and takes them out. It's not divinity, it's the law of karma comes along and takes them out. That is the divine law of life. So, if you are going through a tragic experience, a traumatic experience, understand you would feel the emotions of a loss. You would feel that loss, but don't lose yourself. Inject wisdom, inject knowledge, and say, okay, why am I going through this loss right now? I've done something in the past that has brought about the consequences that I'm facing today. So this is what a wise person does, and this is who he is referring to here. Therefore, the wise person is not grieved because he's able to inject knowledge into what the situation is in front of him. If my husband were to pass away, it could happen anytime. It would be an awful thing. I would not be having this class today if it happened this morning, believe me. It would be an awful thing to lose a loved one. It would be a tragedy. You would feel that emotion. Give yourself a little bit of time. During that time, inject wisdom, inject philosophy, inject knowledge, and you will be okay. You will be able to endure the pain. No doubt there will be a lot of pain. You will endure it and move on. Keep moving. Keep injecting knowledge. Do you understand what I mean? Sabrina, I hope that makes a bit of sense.
Meredith, can you define objectivity?
Define objectivity. Oh, beautiful question. We briefly discussed objectivity, and objectivity means seeing life as it is, seeing the world as it is, seeing others as they are. That is objectivity.
Could it also mean using your intellect to maintain?
Yes.
Or
That is exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Because see, it's using your intellect, your buddhi, to manage your
Yeah.
mind, to supervise your mind.
Yeah.
It's
keep
only
yourself focused.
Yep. It's only when that's right. It's only when the intellect manages the mind that you're able to see life as it is.
Yeah.
Because when the mind takes over, when the intellect is not available and the mind takes over, we want the world to be different. We want others to be different.
Mm.
So intellect supervises mind and sees life as it is every moment of your day. Not just sometimes, all the time.